Never mind.
All right. Well, cool. Guys, welcome to episode 9 of the Second String Debate Team podcast. I am Javin.
I'm Alex. And with us, we have somebody you may have recognized us talking about in previous episodes. One of the co-founders of the Second String Debate Team on previous episodes, yet to be unaired. And we also have Seth with us today, who's back from Africa.
The man, the myth, the legend, Seth.
Was I supposed to walk in? Oh.
Whatever.
It's your
Yeah,
intro.
blow your intro.
Yeah. We also have Brooke with us, who I just met, and she sounds like she knows a hell of a lot about big cats. So let's welcome Brooke too.
Yeah.
Hello. Super stoked.
All right. So the reason that we have Brooke with us today, and we'll go over her credentials here in just kind of a moment, but unless you've been completely living under a rock, I think it'd be hard to ignore the Tiger King documentary that has been just going wild via Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it is the wildest shit I've ever seen in my life. It's about people that, really keep big cats in captivity, and then there is a whole other slew of nonsense that goes along with that. But primarily, we wanted to have Brooke on today to talk about kind of the unnoticed angle of that show, which is really some of the maltreatment of those animals.
Yeah, and I think another point to talk on too is just like you watch that documentary, and I understand why they took it in the direction they did, but the cats definitely past episode 1 are not the stars anymore.
No, not at all.
And that's another reason we wanted to have Brooke on, because ultimately that should be, if any of those people are doing what they're preaching, that should be the priority.
Yeah. So, Brooke, I know that we had talked about, you obviously were not thrilled about watching this show because of the subject matter. But what did you end up watching the first 2 episodes?
I couldn't make it through the second one.
Okay.
It's because I love you, Alex. I watched the first episode. I made it through that. I have context.
Okay.
And that's about as far as I could get. Just when you know what you know, and then you see something like that, like it was pretty hard for me to watch. But again, with my background, being a conservation biologist, having studied the field, having been in the field for over a decade, like it was pretty hard for someone like me to watch.
Real quick, can we have you spit out some of your credentials too, so that it doesn't seem like we just pulled some random person off the street?
Hey, you like cats?
I love cats.
Of course. Yeah, so I got my bachelor's in zoology from the Ohio State University, and then received my master's degree in conservation biology from Miami University in Ohio, and through that I studied just how to really engage people with big cat conservation. So, it's one thing to go in the field, research these cats, and come up with some cool scientific stuff, but if no one knows and no one cares about it, then it doesn't freaking matter. So that's kind of what I shifted my real big focus as my master's is how do we get people to care? Why do you care about a tiger that is a whole ocean away? Why do you care about that? So that was my focus. Been in the field. I've been working in ecotourism now for about the past 3 years. Worked in zoos before that. So, I guess that's a flip note version.
So I'm going to tee up the very first question here. From what you witnessed, and I know I'm speaking in generalities, but every character in that show kind of talks about how much they love these cats. And that's really the whole goal. But you kind of watch that show, and I definitely did not, except for, honestly, the girl who had her arm ripped off. I think she was the only person that actually cared about the tigers or the big cats.
Well, I feel like a lot of the people, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like a lot of the employees did care. I think they were just taken advantage of, because I think I think that a lot of them, I think that a lot of them were, there's a lot of them that seem,
that's true.
little.
I would agree, and I want to piggyback on that thought a little bit because they weren't getting paid worth crap, dude.
No.
You know, their pay was awful, and so the only reason they're there had to be because of the cats. They have some loyalty to maybe Joe Exotic, but
yeah,
come on.
and I agree with that because I think that a certain level of loyalty will keep you around, but not as much as like a love for big cats. So sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, so I just wanted to see what Brooke's opinion on that is. Like, are you familiar with these, you know, like private zoos and stuff like that? Like, is this a message that is, you know, kind of generally stated across other venues that are similar, or is this just a rare incident?
I wish I could say that it wasn't rare that this was occurring. There's anywhere between 5,000 to 12,000 tigers, big cats, across the U.S. Have no idea how many the actual number is. So yes, people do love them. The biggest disconnect is that people don't realize how dangerous these creatures are. I mean, they are predators. Tigers are the biggest cat on the planet. The biggest ones can get up to 570 pounds. That is a massive thing with big claws and big teeth. And so, like, the biggest disconnect, like a lot of these private-owned zoos, and it's just that people don't understand or they don't truly realize how dangerous it was. Like, even in that first episode that I watched, Joe Exotic was, like, playing with a tiger as he was getting interviewed through, like, a chain-link fence as he was touching it, and he almost got his fingers ripped off. And, like, the cat just wasn't doing anything. Like, it was just it's being its natural self. And so that's one of the biggest issues with these private zoos, or whatever they want to call themselves, is that they do not have the same regulations, the same knowledge, the same whatever on how to actually safely house these animals and not hurt people. So visitors are usually taught, like, I think I have some scientific papers that I have here. I think like over 42% of the injuries that occur at these places are visitors, and a good like 24-25% of them are children, because they look like prey. You take a 10-year-old and you make them run, a cat's going to chase it, you know? Like, you can see that at a zoo, you know? So.
Yeah, you're not outrunning a tiger.
No.
Exactly. What are you going to do? A freaking tiger. Oh, these things take down way bigger animals in the wild.
So, if you said that, like, you know, what was it, 40% of the people that, you know, get attacked are patrons, how is this, like, how is it still illegal or still legal? Because I feel like these people had to have gone to court, taken these people to court. Like, I mean, if I was at, I don't think I'd ever be at one of these places, but if I was and I got bit, I'd probably go sue somebody.
Yeah, well, like, so the biggest disconnect here, and this kind of just goes to the lack of laws in the U.S. So there is no one law that in the U.S. federal government that actually regulates this. So it's down to the state, and every state can determine what their stance is on banning or allowing just exotic pets in general. So, you know, some of the other big ones that are issues are like chimpanzees, you know, orangutans, other kind of other exotic animals, deadly snakes, for some reason, that's a thing too. But so when it comes to those, it's down to the state to determine what their stance is. And then in some cases, it's down to the county and the local government, counties, whatever, to determine what the rules are. And then on top of that, it's down to the police force to go in and actually enforce these. And so, like, let's say that your county is pretty strict on this, but the county beside you, like, has no ban, then your people are still just as much in danger, because there is a pretty high rate of these cats or other dangerous animals commonly escaping. So just because you ban it doesn't mean that Joe Schmo and, you know, beside you that might have one, but since he's in a different county than you, like, his tiger could get out and attack you. So that's the big issue, is there is no federal law as of now. There is one currently in Congress right now, but it's not moving anywhere. Anyways, there is no one big federal law from the government that regulates this, and that's like the big disconnect.
This sounds a lot like some gun arguments, but with a gun that can think and walk and talk, I guess, growl.
When I was watching this show, that was the biggest thing that I kept thinking. even with Lizzie. Lizzie would say it all the time, like, how is it legal to have tigers and exotic pets? Like, how is it actually legal? And they're like, you don't need a special cage. Like,
Oh no!
anywhere.
Did you
You just keep
freeze?
them in your house theoretically. And
Did you freeze
Huh?
for a second?
I don't know, did
I
I?
heard him. Freeze.
Well, like not in real life, no, I don't think you did, but on here, yeah, you froze for a second.
Yeah, so that's the thing that just blew my mind when I watched the show is how is it legal to do this still? You know? I don't know. Just I couldn't fathom it really.
Well,
Well, can-
Brooke, so besides for like the obvious safety concerns of keeping a cat or an animal like this domesticated, like what are the other dangers associated with that to the animal?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is, I mean, I'm sure that you all didn't go through tiger one-on-one captivity training in school. Like,
Can't say
who
I
knows
did.
that? Like, you don't, like zookeepers, like, you know, like zookeepers, like an AZA accredited, you know, the big, like, Mac Daddy places, like, these are, like, the places that have the strictest regulations. Those zookeepers have been through such extensive training from the highest accreditation there is. And only then can you even think about taking care of one of these animals in the top facilities in the world. So then these other people come in because they love tigers. I mean, I love tigers, but you will never see me with one because I know that thing could potentially rip my arm off. And if someone doesn't have the proper, you know, enclosures, the proper locks, just knows their behavior, then there's a massive danger to everybody because that animal wants to get out. Like, it just wants to get out, especially if it doesn't have proper enrichment, it doesn't have proper food, it doesn't know, like, and also one of the big things is, I mean, I don't know how many of these people that own these animals have direct, you know, like a veterinary on speed dial that knows how to take care of a tiger. So there's a lot of things lacking in their care a lot of the time, which is super unfortunate. So outside of that, then, yeah, just quality of life is normally a lot poorer.
So you just spoke about enrichment, and Seth, when you were in Africa, did you happen to see any cages around any big cats?
So I actually did. There was one point in Botswana. We went to Chobe National Park for safari, and then we went back across the border to Zimbabwe, and where we were, it was kind of by Vic Falls, and right by the airport there's a what do they call it? There's like a touristy thing you can do called a lion walk, and we actually did it. And it's a place where they take all these lions that are in danger and they raise them in captivity because Chobe National Park only has, I think they said maybe 400 in the whole park, lions. And so they're like taking lions, they're raising them up, and then they're keeping them in like giant, they have like acres and acres, but it's fenced in. And they're like releasing animals in there to train them how to hunt, and basically they're raising them to get them back in the wild. So for the first year, from whenever they're born to like 8 months, they allow them to do these things called lion walks, where people can go and you can actually just go walk with baby 1-year-old lions, and I did it, and it was amazing. But you have to sign a waiver because there's obviously a risk. They're huge. Like, even though they're less than a year old, they're like twice the size of my dogs. Their paws are bigger than my head, and they're still babies, so they're playful, and they don't really care that much about you, especially because they're raised with people. But then after they hit that year, from year 1 to 5, they don't have any human contact at all, and that's to build up their instinctual nature so that they can get strong and then learn how to fend for themselves eventually, to be released from year 5 into the wild again back in the Chobe National Park. So that's the only time I ever saw a cage, and it was a conservation thing. You know, they were trying to build the population back up and then release them into the wild, not just build them up and keep them there. You know.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads into the question that I wanted to ask you, Brooke. When you say, stimulus or enrichment for these animals, is that something like what he just described, kind of what you're talking about? Because for me, when I saw the pins in the show, I see like 7 cats in one cage that's maybe, I don't know, 1,700 square feet at most with a ball and dirt.
Yeah, that's part of the I mean, I'm sure all of you have been around a domestic cat. I mean, you know how much stimulation they need to even play. And so a lot of these big cats need the same type of stimulation all the time. And then, I mean, just imagine if you were in a cage. It's like kind of the same thing. Like, you need constant stimulation of some sort, some shape or form. And, every cat, just like the cats you've been around, they like different things. So a lot of them have big toys. It also depends on kind of what where they are at. Like, let's say if it is an AZA accredited place, kind of what is approved list of enrichment for these cats. Some of them might be different kinds of food. Sometimes there might be like a bone day that they would have, and that's like super fun for them. That's all like really regulated with their diet. So that's like a really, really big part of animal welfare, especially for these cats, where if they can't have natural stimulation, where they're out in the wild doing their wild thing, then artificially stimulating them in like some way, shape, or form, whether it be like really fun toys that are massive that can actually withstand their strength, because that's a big thing. Like, you put a basketball in there and that's going to last literally 2 seconds. So having the resources to buy the toys that are actually going to stimulate them, encourage them to run, that's another big thing. I mean, I'm sure you've been around cats that are super freaking lazy. So to get them up and running around and like exercising and using their muscles, because they naturally would in the wild, because, every week they need to go hunting of some way, shape, or form. So they're always in shape, or if they're not, they're going to die. But if you're just getting fed every day, then like, what are you going to do?
That was something I did notice when they showed footage of the wild tigers. They look so much more ripped and lean than the ones that were in captivity. Like, they just looked like goddesses of the animal kingdom.
They're beautiful.
Well, Seth had brought up in the big cat sanctuary that he went to, or the conservation, that, after like 1 year old, they don't interact with people at all anymore. What, like, for these... take these cats that were in like the Joe Exotic or the whatever Carol's exhibit. When cats like that are just around humans their entire existence, basically, like what can that do to them?
Yeah, so if they have like no natural fears or anything, then of course they are going to be a little bit more. So this is where it gets really dangerous. So if someone sees a cat that's being handled by somebody, like even that Doc Antle guy or whatever that's bringing out these ligers and stuff on like these massive cats, they look tame. And because someone's being able to handle them, by a chain, they're able to walk these cats around. And so it has a misperception that these animals are safe or that they're tame, when they're really not. I mean, they still have the neural, visceral reactions that are natural to all of these cats. So if something stimulates them in any way, shape, or form, they're going to attack, and it's probably going to be whoever's closest to them in that way, shape, or form. So, so even after that, and that's a really big thing when it comes like with breeding. A lot of these places that do breeding for like cub photos and stuff, like that's like one of the worst things possible that these type of sanctuaries can do, because then after that, so I think Joe Exotic said in his show that he can get up to like $100,000 per cub, which is crazy, but that cub is going to grow up. And after 12 weeks-ish old, it's no longer useful, because then it's too deadly. Like, it has these claws that are going to gnaw someone's face. It could bite someone's face if they're trying to get that like cute cup photo. So then after that, now you have a very deadly creature that is then just lost in the world and has nowhere to go, has nothing to do, because it's essentially useless now. But they could live to 10 to 15 years, sometimes longer in captivity, if they are really well taken care of. So then what do you now do with a cat that is a mutt, because it's not, following a certain genetic lineage? And so it's not viable to the wild population, because who knows? That's like That's like crossing a thoroughbred with a donkey. Like, you're not going to release one of these cats out into the wild. Like, that's not how it works. You're not going to put one of these mutts into India, into Bengal territory, and hope it breeds. Like, that's not how it works. So now you have these cubs that were raised by people that are then now outcast. And one of the only ways that then some of these sanctuaries make money is you have experiences with them, which is super dangerous because it's a tiger. So
that leads me to another question, which I know you didn't watch the whole series, but
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
Sorry.
let's get past the character story of the lady. What's her name?
That bitch Carol Baskins.
Carol Baskin.
Let's get past the storyline of her, because one thing that I found in the show that was disturbing to me was that she talks about the sanctuary and saving these animals. And now maybe I'm just misinformed or just don't have maybe the right idea of what a real sanctuary for these animals would look like. But when I saw what she was doing, the only difference that I saw between her and Joe Exotic is that she just doesn't get in the cage with them.
Yeah, she just doesn't put on shows. That's the only and I could be wrong too, but that's the only difference I saw. There's no shows.
Yeah, she still charges people to come to her place. She still doesn't pay any of her staff.
Yeah, they're all volunteered.
Yeah,
crazy.
That's classic nonprofit though. That's a different.
Well, it would be if it wasn't for the fact that she was blaming everybody else for how they treated their employees. If she would have just said nothing, it probably would have gone under the radar and nobody would have been upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was hypocritical.
Oh, sorry. If you wanted to keep going.
No, I was just saying it came across hypocritical, but that's besides the point that I want to get to, which is if you're, how do I phrase this? Because you kind of just answered the question that you can't just take these animals from a zoo and then just release them back into the wild, because one thing I was thinking was well, there's almost twice as many tigers in the United States as there are in the wild. Well, what's wrong with just train in a proper sanctuary, rescuing them, training them to get some of their instincts back, and then letting them go? Which you kind of answered that question. But then now my new question is, what would one of those sanctuaries look like if you're rescuing these animals from private zoos? Because what I saw from her did not look like something that I would consider a sanctuary.
And that's kind of a slippery slope too when you're talking about these kind of places. So I think the biggest thing to look for, let's say that you're in a new city that you've never been to and you're looking for things to do. You're things to do in this city that you're currently traveling in. And this safari park comes up to do. You're okay, cool. The biggest thing to look for is, are they accredited? So that is the biggest question. So if they're accredited by some body, then I looked up some of the sanctuary accrediting bodies, and there's the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and then there's the American Sanctuary Association. So the biggest thing about these, if a sanctuary is accredited, then one of the biggest things is there's no breeding. So if it's in the U.S., they're not allowed to breed if they're accredited. There's no exploitation. There is housing requirements. There's welfare requirements, veterinary requirements, all this kind of thing. So even if it's not on what I would, my level of my expectations, if something does have accreditation and they seem to be doing a pretty good job, then that's whatever. Then that's pretty cool. So that's the biggest thing that I think people need to look into. Is so obviously Joe Exotic had no accreditation whatsoever because he was breeding everything. I mean there was a couple shots of somebody. He had a chimpanzee. Did you notice that in the first episode?
Yeah.
He had what the heck? You have that's a whole other thing. You're getting psychological stuff and start to get into primates, and that's just a whole other thing. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing is looking for accredited facilities I mean, the biggest one's the AZA. Like my best analogy for like the AZA versus these other ones, it's like going with the Rolls Royce versus the freaking Dodge Neon. Like, you want the high end Mac Daddy, like, let's go, let's cruise, like the top of the line, the best of the best. Like that's what you want. Only less than 10% of the 2,800 registered facilities or like exhibitors in the U.S. are accredited by the AZA. That's how strict and high end and how high quality they are. So that's the high level of standards that we're going for. So like that's your Columbus Zoo, your Dallas Zoo, Denver Zoo, like the big public.
Shout out OH.
I know.
There we go.
Yeah. So I hope they kind of like addressed that. And so I don't quite know. I mean, that I will play a little ignorant here on kind of how these characters were portrayed, because like you said, Alex, like in the end of the day, that really doesn't matter. What actually matters is how these animals are taken care of and if the visitors were safe. So that's another thing. So like, were the visitors safe? Was there adequate distance? Like, you can't see on the screen. Was there actual adequate distance between the cat and whatever, like enclosure that it was in? Like those kind of questions. Were they being fed by hand? Oh my gosh.
Well, not at the sanctuary, but I think they basically, their cages looked almost like chicken wire with like hugely overgrown grass. And yeah, like it really was not as much of a step better than Joe Exotic's place. The only difference that I saw was that they don't let you pet them.
No. Yeah, like the differences between Carole Baskin and Joe Exotic are so minimal. Like, it's just, Joe Exotic is like a circus, like just a meth-filled circus where everybody's got guns and it's crazy. And Carole Baskin is just like a little bit more of a tamed circus. It's like the county fair versus like Bainham and Barley or whatever the circus.
Barnum and Bailey. Yeah.
Barnum and Bailey. Because they're doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to ask, because to me, from my opinion, from what I saw, it did not look too dissimilar. And so that's why I wanted to know what your thoughts were on like what a sanctuary should be, because that's important. I'd be interested to find out if she is accredited now.
I mean, she said in that opening statement that she was. I don't know I did not look too much into these organizations like themselves. Yeah. And I've heard about the Big Cat Rescue for a while myself, just being in the field, but it was never anything that I personally looked into, just because that's not the route I wanted to go down, like myself. So I think pretty sure she is. I don't know by what body. And so like, I'm not going to take I'm not on either person's side, because to me, none of it should exist, period. Like none of it should exist. So there should be something that outlaws, which is the Big Cat Safety Act, which is currently in Congress, which would ban the private possession of big cats, which would be wonderful. But that is like just sitting in Congress right now. But yeah, until something like that is put into place, it's kind of frustrating.
And I think that's just what I think a lot of people that watch the show, unless they're maybe like super hardcore PETA members, I think if you watch it with just a rational mind, you kind of go, nobody in the show is doing a good job of anything. Like, I don't know, it's dumbfounding to me, like how, like, I wouldn't even treat my actual domesticated cat the way that they treat some of these animals. Mm-hmm. And these cats are so much bigger and require so much more that I'm like, if I was building a playpen for my little cat, it would be bigger than what, one of these playpens is for like 5 of them.
Hey,
like the biggest.
Go ahead. Sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, one of the things to keep in mind as well, So like kind of how I just talked about like the whole life cycle of these cats and what happens. So like that's one of the issues with breeding in the U.S. because like I just said, like what happens to these cubs after 12 weeks when they're no longer suitable to take a cute little cub photo with and then that is why all these other sanctuaries exist because I mean some of them do have higher morals and they do get accreditation and then they do have the right facilities and know how to safely have these animals on their property. But the fact that that's even needed just overstates the issue. So, like, they shouldn't be needed, period, is because these cats shouldn't have even been born in the first place. All of this extra money and tourism dollars should be going into the places that are doing like substantial, unbelievable tiger conservation work. Or if you really want to see a tiger, the best way to save them? Get on a plane, fly to India, go to Ranthambore, go to Kanha, go to the best places in the world to see a wild tiger, and then it's going to be the most amazing experience of your life. I've seen one in the wild, and I started to cry. Like, I literally lost my mind. It was unreal. And support the places that are actually saving these cats for real. Like the Indian government has done an unbelievable job. I'm sure all of you know they have this massive human population. And yet their tiger numbers are growing. Their tiger numbers are growing because that's how serious they take it. And you have a pretty high chance of seeing tigers in the wild if you go at the right season and the right place. So absolutely. I'm a big advocate of ecotourism. That's pretty much what I studied in my master's.
But what you're saying is what Seth did in his safari walk is actually a good way to do this if you want to see a big cat.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to discredit. I don't want to discredit it at all. I'm personally anything that has a chance to interact directly with a big cat in any way, shape, or form, I'm super skeptical of. It sounded like they made up for it. It sounded like it was a moneymaker. And I don't know anything about where you were, like where it was at, like the body or anything. But it sounded like after that, then these cats were then trained how to be wild cats. So like there is that. It's in Africa. I'm immediately skeptical because, I mean, you have to make a hard line somewhere in some way, shape, or form. So anything that raises cats for you to have an experience with, and that's its sole purpose, or you're paying money for that. I'm sure you guys have heard of, like, Tiger Temple and, like, places like that got shut down because they were – oh, you didn't? Okay, so, yeah, this unbelievable, like, Buddhist monk or whatever, this whole monastery, they had – you could go. It was an experience – when you went over to Asia, it was an experience that you could go do, was to go take selfies with tigers. And they were sedating their tigers so that the tourists could come in and take photos with them.
Wow.
It's horrendous. It was horrendous. And it was like a money maker. These monks were making absolute bank. And it was shut down actually pretty recently, a couple years ago. So, so they were subduing, like they were literally like putting sedatives in these tigers.
Well, that sounds like how we get selfies with Jace.
It's true. Just feed him some sedatives. We let people come in, take pictures with them. It's great. So, real quick, I looked up just a second ago Carol Baskin's accreditation, and it is from the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries. Is that a good one?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
that bitch Carol Baskins is accredited.
I mean, that's why I was kind of interested, and I don't know how she was played in this, and I do not want to take sides for obvious reasons. Because
I don't think any of us are taking anybody's sides on anything.
I'll take a side. She killed her husband.
But I'm taking a side. But yes, I mean, when it comes to sanctuaries, it is a global accrediting body. This, because I even wrote them down. This Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and that sounds like the Big Cat Rescue is accredited by them.
Well, that solves in terms of the cat importance. Then I think that answers the question. Now, the character part of it is still unanswered, but the cat.
Whether or not she fed her husband to a tiger is still to be determined. Even though. I think she fed her husband to big cats. For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see O.J. Simpson's comment on that?
Yeah, like if anybody's the subject matter expert on if somebody killed their spouse, it's O.J. Simpson. So if he says that she did it, she did it. But no, that's actually really surprising that she's accredited by I guess a credible entity. That's crazy and maybe it's the light that the show paints her in, but I agreed with Alex that like I think her sanctuary looked really sketchy.
Yeah, and also too, like the biggest thing to consider with these like accrediting bodies, I mean, it's none of it. It's like they're not doing like an interview with like the person. Like, tell me how good of a person you are, or on a scale of 1 to 10. Like that's not. It's all about the grounds on which these animals are kept on. So, like I said, a lot of it is like what's the housing facility? How safe is it actually to have them there? Like, how are they fed? Do they have veterinary care? Like those kind of things. And like for any of these places that were shown on there to get like AZA accreditation, like if an AZA person came on there, and by the way, the AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquarium. By the way, I should have said that earlier. But like I said, they are like the professional standard of pretty much the world when it comes to accrediting these zoological facilities. They would shut them down immediately. Like if one of them came in, like and like to get them certified or accredited, like there is absolutely no way. They would have to completely change every single thing that they did, pretty much, in order to get up to their.
Well, I mean, me and Seth can kind of at least speak to the fact that forced focus from a camera can paint a drastically different picture than reality if we wanted to as the creator of that series. Mm-hmm. So it's also entirely possible that because of the angle they were taking on the character, to shoot it in a way that would make sense for that storyline.
It's also the first episode. I mean, I don't want to like defend anybody in this, but I did notice that the only shots that I saw were cats being fed in their feeding pen. So like the super small ones that you saw the cats eating out of, that was just like their feeding pen. Like it didn't actually show their entire enclosure. So that's a disconnect that I noticed. So I have no idea how big the enclosures were the cats were kept in because they were getting really close shots of them in their feeding pen, which is like a little offshoot,
I think
and that's it.
Yeah, I think, Seth, if you could probably agree with me on that those tight shots were probably more for dramatic effect.
Oh, yeah.
Because you saw them later on, right?
Yeah, it looked like there was at least, sometimes there were shots where there was like 30 tigers. And it looked like an ocean of tigers in a cage. And yeah, I think it was the feeding pen. But still, the fact that they have to do that and they have to I don't know.
Well, and it should be taken.
Kind of bothered me.
It should be taken too that a lot of the footage that was used in those first couple of episodes, especially of like Carol Baskin's property, were from Joe Exotic's reality show, and not as much from the actual filmmaker. Because you're right, there is a clear biased picture from Joe Exotic where there is a cat in a feeding pen drinking water, but then you can see behind it there's a whole nother big cage that it also exists in. So there definitely is the whole show, it's really hard to get a clear idea of who any of these people are, because it is a story and they are trying to paint certain characters in a certain light. But I think
I found interesting too. So we all started talking. Seth, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I thought they did pretty good at making you hate almost everybody. So
yeah.
John.
So I mean, there wasn't a huge bias for me. I was like, they all suck in their own right. And so bravo to the guy who made this.
And that might have been, his direction, or it might have just been the fact that these people are, giant pieces of garbage. But that was I just found it so weird that even the one woman who is accredited and is seemingly doing everything right, I I don't think good people own big cats is what I really got from this documentary, because like everybody that had their fingers involved or their hands in the pot in some way was just
Dude,
a bad
it's
person.
easy.
Yeah, just grease balls. And I think that kind of, attests to like why we have Brooke here. Like this is somebody that this is what someone that actually cares about animals looks like.
They have blonde hair.
They have blonde. No, it's just that's like you have the presentation of somebody that actually is knowledgeable and gives a shit about animals and is not, just trying to disguise what could be a decent effort in, a money grab. Is what it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. I completely understand how people are like, oh my God, I would do anything to touch like a baby tiger. And I understand that feeling. Like, I deeply understand that feeling. Like, I really do. But, like, when you're looking at the big picture, and if someone truly actually cares about this species or like any group of species, like whether or not you're into primates or if you're into reptiles or if you're into big cats, like, you look at the whole lifestyle of the whole lifespan of this animal, and just for me to have that one experience with that animal, what is it going to be subjugated to for the rest of its life? For me to pay, how much did that Doc Antle guy say that he paid? Like $300, $400, $600 or something like that to have that experience?
Somehow
like, is it really worth it?
Somehow that guy is there's the most skeezy, but comes out the cleanest looking.
Yeah, and so like that's the biggest thing. Like, I would never, ever, ever, ever take the opportunity to have that experience with that cub, just because I know what actually that meant for me to have that experience with it. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't understand,
like you said,
it's so easy. It's so easy to be like, oh yeah, I want to see a tiger. I don't have to travel outside the United States. If you don't have the knowledge that you have, and like the moral obligation too, then yeah, it's so easy for people. Like that's why they're making bank on these private zoos.
Yeah, I agree, because I think before this documentary or before speaking to Brooke, like I wouldn't have known. I would have been blind to how bad these places actually are. Like if I was for whatever reason in Oklahoma and I typed in things to do and Joe Exotics Park showed up, like I might not know that he's a giant piece of garbage who's doing terrible things.
I know,
to
it's
animals.
almost like it seems so like this is kind of what goes through my mind. It's like it goes back to the how is this not illegal kind of thing. If it's there, I would imagine, it's probably like approved by the government, and that's just like where my mind would go. I wouldn't go farther in research. Is this actually legit?
Yeah, my first thought wouldn't be like, is this illegal?
It's kind of
like some states it's completely illegal. Like you would be fined and heavily persecuted if you were found to have one of these animals on your property, but that's not across the board. Like that's the issue. It's not a federal law. It's a state law, and sometimes it's even less than that, and then you're reliant on your super small police force to then enforce these things, and like there's so many layers involved with it, and it's why these places can still exist. There's everything to like partial ownership where you can pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars to have licenses to have these things, and who has that kind of money, but they really want to have a tiger, so they have one underneath their porch in the backyard. Like those kind of things really do exist. Like
wait,
mountain lions
hold on a second.
underneath their porch at their trailer. I'm literally not joking. Like this happened. But in states where like it's okay, there is no laws, so there's nothing actually banning you from this. And last I checked, one of the papers I saw, right now there are 7 states that are like, you can have them. That's whatever.
That's like having a surface-to-air missile in your yard and being like, nah.
Can you imagine if you had kids and you didn't know that your neighbor had some kind of big cat in their yard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Terrified.
What are the 7 states that you mentioned? Do you know?
I don't remember all of them. Like some of them, Alabama, North Carolina.
Come on, Brooke. There's only 50 of them.
Oklahoma, Florida, maybe.
Oh, I definitely, I can personally attest to the
number.
fact that North Carolina doesn't give a shit what you
Because they
do.
mentioned in that show, they mentioned the dude in Ohio that had whatever, like 10 or 13 tigers, and then he just released them.
You're
'Cause
talking
he's
about
like-
the Gainesville incident, and that was actually
Yeah,
horrendous.
right.
So I was still in Ohio at that time, and that so Ohio was pretty lax with these laws, and then that occurred. So he had like 56 large predators on his property, or like around that number, and then he was suicidal, and he released all of them and killed himself. And yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like, normal fucking people don't own big cats. Like,
This was in 2011. This was not that long ago.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this was not that long ago. And so it was a really big news story. I don't know if you were still in Ohio, Alex, at that time, but like you would go on the newscast and there's like these news reporters and like there's literally a lion going through people's yards because I mean, they're starving, they're scared, they're going around. I mean, they try to capture some of them, but I mean, these cats, it's really hard to tranquilize them to have the right dosage. Their heart rates are going really, really fast to actually put these animals down. You're like having the line of maybe even killing them. So a lot of them had to be killed, and that was the really brutal
Well, yeah. I mean,
footage you saw.
because police officers are not trained in how to properly tranquilize a large animal.
I mean, like,
Oh,
what are
yeah.
you going to do? I mean, like,
Exactly.
literally, what are you going to do? There is a jaguar or a panther or some type of chasing you. Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it just makes common sense. And, like, I mean, it was a very big danger. It was awful. And that's really what brought it to light. And then Ohio really cracked down their laws after that. It's really unfortunate that it took, the sacrifice of 50 beautiful animals
Yeah.
in order for this to be known. But then Ohio did crack down the laws on that. And actually, I was interning at the Wilds when this happened, which is relatively close, and that was like one of the best summers of my life. It's this massive 10,000 acre conservation that's in Ohio doing unbelievable work. And people at first thought it was them, that all of their animals got out. So then that was like a really big hoopla. But no, it was this psycho dude that just had them in pens and killed himself and released all of them.
Jesus Christ.
That's nuts.
That
So,
was horrendous.
God.
Brooke,
bless.
I like big cats. They are really cool. Are there other types of big cats out there that maybe have been domesticated but not in the order of like a lion or a tiger or anything like that? Like a serval or something like
Like a
that?
bobcat or something.
Yeah, like are there animals like that exist that if people are like, you know what, I want a cat, but I want a bigger one, like is there a cat that people can buy that's not going to be detrimental to society or your own health?
Yeah, it's called a fucking dog.
I'm not going to answer that question at all. It goes against every single moral I have. Like, I have a rescued kitty. Her name is Joplin, off of Janis Joplin. And she's 1 year old, and she's a sweetheart, and she's a cabbie of some sort. Like, get one of those and call it a day.
Or
And watch David Attenborough on BBC, and go to your local AZA accredited zoo and buy an India ticket.
I just had this idea of Alex's question being followed up by like, so I found this links and I don't know what to do with it. Like,
oh my god.
I would kill you, Alex. You know I would.
I limit myself to my fishes.
fishes in
Cats
captivity,
don't
that's
mix
another
together,
thing.
So
That's amazing.
So, Brooke, do you think a documentary like The Tiger King is going to be positive or negative for like the future of laws surrounding what we have with big cats in captivity?
I'm so glad you just asked me that, because I love to look at everything in like an optimistic, positive light, and I think that that's what this does. It really is showing the psycho people that do own cats. Like, I mean, there was some, even going through Joe's entire history, he's gone through some serious psychological stuff that like should have been addressed through therapy. And maybe he wouldn't have owned a really highly crazy psycho zoo. And so I think it's really showing the entire world. I mean, literally the entire world. Like, everyone already thinks we're crazy, and then this show comes out, and now the rest of the world is really going to think we're psycho because we shoot guns, and now we own big cats. So that's going to be great. But, yeah, I think it's really painting to light this extent of this issue, how big it is. And I think that, because also right now, like I said, this Big Cat Safety Act, what it would do is put a full ban on the private ownership of big cats, which would be very exciting. I mean, of course, there would be some exceptions like AZA accredited places, USDA, OSHA accredited places, which that would be awesome. But I think that everybody is now going to be exposed to the real problem. And the fact that you're even having me on this and talk right now is just already showing how much it's buzzing around, how many people are thinking about this. And a lot of people have texted me off the side, like, Tiger King, oh my gosh, have you heard about Tiger King? And I'm like, yes, I have. I even told a few people about this podcast that I was going to be on. Like, it would be like, listen, listen to this stuff. So it's starting the conversation, and like the number one step to getting momentum, to changing society, to change normal ways is education. So people are seeing in a very dramatic, very, like, I don't know, Hollywoodized thing about this actual issue that's huge in our country. It's a massive problem. And then it also goes into like actual tiger conservation and supporting real tiger conservation efforts and stuff like that. So I think it's great. It's at least getting the conversation started, and all of this stuff is already going on. So it's not like, I don't think after this there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are like, I want to be Joe Exotic. Like, I don't think that that's what's going to happen.
I hope not.
Yeah.
And I mean,
we don't need a sequel to this.
Yeah, and I think hopefully at that point, our, like, representatives, our congresspeople, like our government, they know what everybody is listening to, what they're talking about. They've probably even seen the show. So maybe that'll put some fire in their butts to really put some federal regulations in place. Because, like, all the other big laws, the acts like the Endangered Species Act, some of the other ones, the Lacey Act, the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, those are good for banning, like, the imports of tigers. So, like the illegal wildlife trade, that's one of the biggest issues with wild tigers. Like, that's one of the things that are killing them the most, or poaching. And so those type of acts protect tigers in that sense. Like, you can't just, like, ship one from India into the country. But it doesn't protect cats that are already here and that are being bred in this country. But this act could. Which is really exciting, and people are seeing it for real and how deadly it is. And I didn't even know a girl got her arm ripped off, but not surprising. Like, not surprising.
Yeah,
More
right?
people are getting their arms ripped off if they're allowed to be, like, putting their hands through and touching tigers. Like,
Well, even Joe almost got killed.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he fired his weapon 3 times. 3 times at those cats. And towards people. Like, can we just talk on that for a second? That man just shot his gun like it was the Wild fucking West. Like,
Yeah.
Dude.
Shooting
Those
guns
guys
over
are
people's
insane.
heads.
when he was shooting at those tigers,
At
I was
their
like,
feet.
what is going on?
Fuck. Those cats didn't give a fuck either.
No.
Yeah, they were kind of like, that's a little loud, but they still pursued him.
Yeah, because and that's the thing too that I really saw through that documentary is on Joe's exhibit or his zoo, whatever you want to call it. All of those creatures, all of them were didn't scatter when gunshots went off, which means God knows how many rounds this nut was just throwing around on this zoo, because for animals to not be like scared of a gunshot, that means that they're used to it. Like, you see that a lot in like hunting dogs and things like that, because they're trained and they're just numb to it. Which you see it in that documentary. Those tigers are like, shoot me again, dude. Like, I don't give a damn. Come on, Joe.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah, that was insane.
No, yeah, that was a crazy thing. I mean, because, like, it's so funny that you even said that, because I obviously didn't get that far in the show, but someone even mentioned, like, I don't even know who it was, like, he always had a gun on his side at all times, and he said it was for people. Like, it wasn't for the cats, it was for people, and I'm just like,
yeah,
dude,
that's what
like,
he said.
have you ever done some self-reflection of your life and, like, why you have enemies that might come shoot you? Like,
well, I mean, you brought up something really interesting, like how, you know, Joe Exotic's history, he's a messed up guy, like in the head, like, you know, he had this, and I think that could be, you know, something important to examine as they try and pass this act, is like, you know, look at the people that have these cats. They have what would psychologically cause you to want to own like the apex predator in the world? Because I feel like that says something about you, you know, like whether it's like filling some kind of insecurity or something like that. But like if a dog or a regular cat isn't enough for you to like, you know, have your connection with, like what's going on, I guess.
You know, it's
crazy.
crazy.
It's not a symbol.
Well,
it's a lot. I mean, did you see Shaq in the first episode?
I'm sorry?
Did you hear Shaq in the first episode? That he bought 2 tigers off of Joe Exotic? Like, it's quite often a status symbol.
I don't remember that part.
So a lot of, like, so this is unfortunate when it comes to cheetahs. So cheetahs are one of the, they are in a lot of danger. Because a lot of people think that they're safer because they aren't as deadly, so to speak, as some of the big cats, like a tiger or something. And so a lot of them, they kind of pseudo-domesticate them, but not really. And so a lot of rich people have cheetahs. But again, like the same thing applies. Like these are big cats, these are predators, and a lot of people don't know how to take care of them. Like even some of the best research in the world and some of the people that know these animals the best are still trying to write some of the textbooks on how to properly take care of them and like how to stimulate breeding, like in like well-regulated research, genetic, you know, like the actual breeding, like, you know, how in their environment do they actually in the real life, you know, those kind of things. So, so that's the big issue. A lot of the time it's a status symbol. If you have a tiger, well, then you must be a badass. Because you have breed to have a tiger.
If you look at every other character except for Carol, everybody was using it to get laid. Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yep.
There was some sleazy stuff going down around that
Doc Antle and his fucking cult?
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
That's so nuts.
When that came out, when I learned about that in the show, I was like, what the fuck?
Alex, when you told me, you were the person that turned me on to this show. And you were like, you gotta watch it. And I'll be honest, I was half paying attention until, I think it's in the first episode, like I was just kind of on my phone, half watching this, whatever. And then that part about like Doc Antle and like the slew of all women volunteers that work for him and Joe Exotic's country albums, I was like, all right, I'm in this. Like, I gotta see what the fuck is going on.
What social experiment this is?
Yeah, like, I don't know. And I think I agree with you though. It becomes a status symbol. All of those people, Joe Exotic, Carol, Doc Antle, everybody in this show found like they all thought they were the Tiger King in one way or another. You know, like that's how they viewed it. They had whoever had more cats was the more powerful, you know, degenerate, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was their identity. It was their identity through and through. That's who they were.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
And when you bring up like the proper care for these animals, when I was kind of like writing down some questions this morning, things that I really wanted to ask, I looked over and my dog is just head deep in my trash can, just like eating around, doing whatever he wants. And I just thought to myself, I was like, what if I had a tiger right now? And what if my tiger was head deep in the trash? Like, I can't go over and like smack his butt and be like, hey, we don't eat from the trash. You know, like, I'd get murdered.
Literally, though.
That'd be it. Like, good night.
Yeah, never sneak up on a big cat.
No.
Never. Oh, so were you asking about proper care of tigers? Like, is that what
No. I was saying, because you had already brought that up, that like people that domesticate them, in the United States, they don't have any idea, they don't have any idea what they're doing with this animal. the research isn't done. So you can't just be like, you live in the backyard now.
I mean, look how many people get bit by dogs. I mean, like,
Yeah.
and that's a domesticated animal for thousands of years. And people will still get hospitalized by dogs. And then, of course, all you're going to see
I thought Seth was about to get bit.
Like, I mean,
It scared them.
you know, like, I mean, some man's best friend, you know, quote unquote, man's best friend is still quite dangerous if you actually look at it. I mean, I absolutely love dogs. Like, please don't, you know, whatever. But I mean, just to put it in perspective, like, they have strong jaws, big teeth. Like, a lot of people have been hurt by dogs, and that is a domesticated animal. You know, people get hurt by cows. Like, and that's a domesticated animal.
I've been
like,
fucked up by a house cat.
That was scary.
Steve Irwin died from a stingray.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Well,
I think people just, like, I don't know, they just perceptions get out of whack, and, like, that's why I'm, like, super, super big advocate of not showing a person with the animal because of what the perception is. So, like, let's say that I was, you know, one of these people in this show or whatever, and I had the background I had, and I was saying in my talk, as I'm standing beside a tiger, you don't want to own a tiger, and this is why. They are super deadly, they aren't tameable, and I'm going on and on, but I have the tiger right beside me. Actions speak louder than words, significantly. So I'm never going to be the person that's going to show myself with one of these animals, even though I love them so much. You're going to see me with my Canon, my camera in my hand around the world taking photos of them in the wild. So, like, that's my way of expressing my love of them, is, like, actually going to the places that need my tourism dollars to save them for real in the wild.
And for the viewers who don't know, Brooke, would you please tell everybody your Instagram handle so they can go follow your amazing photos of big cats around the world?
Yeah, so it's just at Brooke Adventures, BROOKE Adventures. So, yeah, I just got married, like, literally a month ago, so I was kind of slack there for a while of posting. But
How dare you?
now I'm jobless because the travel industry crashed, and we're all stuck inside, so I'm getting through photos. So I was just in Africa for a month, too. That's actually, so, yeah, so I have lots
That's
of
awesome.
photos.
I guess everybody just wants to flex on their travels on us, Alex.
Yeah, no, that's why I really wanted to know where you were. Even Alex sent me some of your cheetah photos, and I just...
yeah, it was insane. So when we were in Kenya, we did a 3-day safari, and we were in the Masai Mara, and we saw a pride of lions. We saw 3 mothers, I guess, and then there was maybe 5 or 6 cubs, and then they were like in a showdown with a whole herd of elephants, and it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And like you, I didn't cry, but I wanted to. It was such a powerful moment when you see them in the wild, and they're like just lounging and cleaning their babies, and it's like, I'm actually just looking at this right now. They're 15 feet in front of me right now. This is insane. It blows your mind. It really puts things into perspective. And then to see, like, how big and powerful they really are in person, like seeing something on a show or through a screen doesn't do it justice, no matter what it is. You know, everything is kind of morphed when you put it through a screen. So when you see it in real life and you actually hear their like bellowing growling that they do that just like rattles you to the bone, it really puts it into perspective, like how powerful these animals are. It's amazing.
Can I hear an impression, Seth?
Ooh. Yeah, you owe us an impression. You've been gone for a long
I-
time. Give us your...
I can't.
Make my
it's
bones
physically
shake.
impossible. Huh?
Huh? Make my bones shake. Shake me down to my
can't.
core. Show me how powerful you are.
I'll send you guys a video, though. How about that?
Good compromise.
Yeah. I
Well,
sent you all a link to the lion encounter that I went to, and it shows you, it tells you like what they do. I would like you guys to look at that maybe sometime and let me know what you think about it. I actually did find the website though, so that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And again, since I don't know, like, where you, like, they're probably doing amazing work, and, like, I do not absolutely ever want to, like, put them under the bus. Like,
Oh, no. Yeah.
most of what I'm talking about is in the U.S., and then there are a lot of sketchy places around the world that are doing exploitation of their local wildlife, and it's usually peer breeding and with baby interactions. It's quite common.
So I have another quick question for all of you guys here. I think it's possible that there are those people out there that watch Joe Exotic and go, well, that sounds like a fucking good idea to me. But here's my other question. Is it possible that we look at that and we kind of see all the craziness because we live in a state where big cats are actually a thing in the wild? When we go for hikes, not that we're like super conscious about it, but we're aware that we live in mountain lion territory. Like, do you think maybe that puts it a little bit more real to us because we have that, like, because, like, if you live in Oklahoma, you're not going to be worried about a mountain lion or any big cat when you go outside.
Yeah, possibly. I could see that. Like, we definitely do have even if it's mild, it's, we have some form of, like, cognizance about big cats. I remember all the time as a little kid growing up here, if I was ever going out by myself, that was always watch out for mountain lions. But I don't think that a lack of living somewhere like this is reason to see someone like Joe Exotic and be like, hell yes, like, I'm gonna do that with my life. Like, I'm gonna get these cats now. But I think that's a whole different discussion. I think if you see somebody like that and you're like, that's my man, then you need to just get out, go away.
Yeah. Something.
Now, here's the other question. Do you think growing up in a place where methamphetamine is easily accessible would make someone go, that's my man, that's a good idea?
Absolutely.
I would agree, yeah.
That's just science. Because if you're on meth and you see someone like Joe Exotic, you're like, a couple things go through your head. You're like, A, that guy has to have more meth. And B, like, he is what you want to be when you're on an amphetamine. Just
yeah. When you're on it, you're the Tiger King.
Oh, Christ. Well, Brooke, what if you could take anything directly away from what you saw from the Tiger King, what would it be?
I think that the biggest thing is that it just really showed the issue of big cat breeding and cub interactions. So like, that's one of the biggest things that if anybody's watching this, like, just be really cognizant of that. If you are anywhere where there's an opportunity to have an interaction with a cub, please do not partake in it. Like, that is like my biggest ask of anybody, is just please do not partake, because that means you are supporting this whole cycle, this whole industry, because just please think of what's going to happen to that cat after you have that interaction and you pay that large amount of money to have that interaction. I would advocate most of going to AZA accredited. It's like, if you can't afford to get a ticket to go over and see these animals in the wild, which it is getting way more affordable, by the way, but if that is not something and that is not something that is, like, on your radar anytime soon, then just going to a place that has the highest accreditation possible, like going to somewhere like that, going to your big public, not private zoo that is AZA accredited. Like I said, they are the gold standard. They are the gold standard. They are world leader in this. And then like supporting some really good groups that are actually doing real conservation work for these big cats. Like, some of my favorites, me and one of my colleagues, we started the Cheetah Conservation Fund chapter here. It's called the Rocky Mountain chapter. So we started that here, kind of representing Colorado and the neighboring states. Like, that's a really good one to get involved with. Panthera, God, I love them. So Panthera, that is the Latin word for the group of tigers, like a group of big cats. So, like, Panthera leo, other lions, so Panthera. Panthera.org, they're doing unbelievable work. They're more on the research side. So they are doing the actual groundwork to get more information about them. And then, of course, like the World Wildlife Fund, they're doing a lot of support with tiger conservation, the Wildlife Conservation Society, so those kind of things. So actually supporting the people that are saving them in the wild is another really good way to go about that. So just being a smart consumer, like and that goes across the board, like that goes across everything in life, but just being a smart consumer, you are putting whoever you give your money to is who you're supporting. So just make sure that you're supporting someone that you agree with their morals. I mean, especially with this. So if you see Joe Exotic or any place like that, please do your research. See if they're accredited. If they're not accredited, and just listen to your guts. If you think that maybe you're like, he seems a little psycho, just don't go. Just don't go.
Those sequins are definitely a giveaway.
Yes.
If you see sequins on anybody at a big cat exhibit,
It's time to go.
you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place.
Yeah. Turn around. Get out. Oh,
You made too many wrong turns there.
Yeah.
What backwoods are you in right now?
Yeah, no kidding.
Go back to start. Do not collect $100.
Just leave.
Just
Just
go.
buy your plane ticket out. Just go. You might get mauled by something.
Something.
It
Maybe
could
even the
be a
zookeeper.
bear. It could be a wolf. You don't know.
So I have a question. What is everyone's favorite big cat?
I mean, I used to love like tigers because I had like a stuffed tiger, and his name was Tiger because I was super creative as a kid.
Nice.
But I don't know now. Like if it's a cat, I really like the mountain leopard, the snow leopard.
Snow leopard?
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
so
like I love the mountains, and it's a big cat, and they're gorgeous looking.
I've
yeah,
always.
I agree with that. My favorite is the cheetah. I don't know why. I've always liked the fact that they're the fastest, like animal, just ever, you know.
Yeah.
And then one of my biggest highlights of the whole trip I was on was just being able to see a mom with her 4 cubs, just like hanging out, and that was incredible to me.
Just being cheetahs.
Yeah, just being cheetahs.
I would.
Did they try and give you some Cheetos? Was there any branding?
There was no brand placement. No, they're purist.
Yeah.
Now I've always been fascinated by white tigers my whole life. I just think they're just beautiful, beautiful creatures.
Are those natural or are those like somehow bred?
Yeah, I actually don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
It's because of gene, so it's an inbreeding thing.
Oh,
Oh.
So you won't find them in the wild. And if you do, they're probably not going to survive. So.
no.
What about ligers?
Hmm?
I know ligers can't reproduce, but do you find ligers in the wild?
No. That is purely a man-made catastrophe.
Catastrophe.
Yeah.
Purely a man-made catastrophe.
I didn't know
blamed
that was a
Napoleon Dynamite
real.
for that.
Outside of Napoleon Dynamite, I didn't know that was real, like a real thing, until this
A lot of people
documentary. And I
didn't.
heard them
Yeah.
say the word liger, and I was like, rewind. Like, no, hold on.
They're crazy. They're huge. They have a lot of health issues, though, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they grow, like, bigger. They can go up to, like, 1,000 pounds and,
Yeah,
like,
they
what,
just
13 feet?
They just
Like
they
that.
just die. It's pretty awful. But it's just a show. Like, why else would you breed
Yeah.
these?
It serves no purpose. It's just the namesake. But that's, God, 1,000 pounds of cat. Jesus fuck. I can't. God.
Brooke, what's yours?
That's like the hardest question, and you would think that I should be able to easily answer that, but like the more I learn about each cat, the more I fall in love with them significantly. You have to like narrow it down to a continent, and then maybe I'll be able to answer. Like right now, I'm on a really big snow leopard and jaguar kick. Like, oh my gosh, they're so freaking cool. Like jaguars have the strongest feline bite of the whole entire feline group of animals. So if you ever watch a really crazy documentary, like they just crush caiman skull, like that's how they kill their prey. They just crush. Like that's unbelievable.
Yeah, don't they understand to go for the neck because they can just sever the spine that way, and then it's like an instant death for their prey.
Yeah,
Jaguar.
it depends on the cat on and how they hunt, but specifically for jaguars, since they had such those really really strong jaws, a lot of the time it's just crushing their skulls, like they're or just crushing whatever it is that they bite. So that's pretty cool because a lot of other cats is mostly by asphyxiation, so that's normally how they by the neck, sometimes by the back of the neck. So these are normal ways that you can kill the cats. But yeah, so. Jaguars are high on my list right now. Snow leopards, they're doing a lot of really good research with them and learning a lot about them, like the Snow Leopard Trust. And God, they're beautiful. I think they get the beauty queen label of all the big cats. I super love cheetahs. I do have a cheetah tattoo and as well as a tiger tattoo, so I love them quite significantly. But yeah, so. I guess it depends on the day. You have to ask me which one's my favorite because maybe what David Attenborough documentary I just watched isn't what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this too, Brooke. In terms of large cats, I know they're mostly they're predators for sure, but do they if out in the wild? I know they'll attack things that run because that's their instinct, but will they attack and eat just anything, or do they have very specific diets that they tend to lean towards?
Yeah, it's highly dependent on the cat, but yeah, they normally have certain prey that they normally go for, depending on whatever that would be, and also maybe even region specific on, how I said, jaguars, they quite commonly eat caiman, that's one of their staple things that they eat.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Caiman, yeah.
Wait.
It's the best thing. Watch a video of it. It's awesome.
Watch Our Planet. Just watch
it.
You'll thank me later. I think it's the Jungle episode.
You just kind of blew my mind with that.
Yeah.
The guy who tried to run a train into a boat the other day.
What?
Cats, water, eating crocodile-based animals.
Isn't it cool? They're so cool.
That seems like
You just never what?
You just broke Alex. He's like, nope, that's it. Goodbye.
Train.
Checking out.
Wait, no, you didn't hear about that?
No, I heard. Well, you told me about the guy that tried to drive a train into a boat.
This guy tried to drive a train into a boat because he said the boat looked suspicious. So he drove it off the tracks, made it about 100 yards, and didn't hit the boat.
Where was this?
Yeah, what?
California, LA.
That's the world we're living in.
Who has a train that can
He's
just...
probably got tigers, too.
No, he was an engineer. He was
Tigers
a
and trains.
Engineer.
Yeah. That was the weirdest bit of information I've gotten today.
Yeah.
That's
You were
why
weirded
I
out by
use
the
it as a
caiman?
reference.
Yeah,
That's why I use it as a reference for my mind
Oh
goal.
my gosh.
Yeah, I forgot. I think it was 2 days ago. I looked at my phone and I had a text message from Alex, and it was some guy tried to drive a train into a boat, and I was like, why wouldn't he? Shit's crazy.
Because those two modes of transportation belong together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that look suspicious? Oh, I bet it did.
I don't like that boat. Veer towards it. Oh, Christ.
Well, should we end it on that nice little giggle factor, guys?
Yes, we can end it on the
That's
fact
a great
that
way to end it.
people are tigers and trains. That's the biggest takeaway from this episode.
Yes.
But no, thank you, Brooke, so much for coming on and just really enlightening us to what should be an even bigger subject right now. Less about Joe Exotic, less about Carol Baskins, more about these actual animals that are, being maltreated. So thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Brooke. Thanks for having us or coming on. And,
Yeah, thanks for having us on your podcast.
It's on your show now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. Thanks. And Alex, thanks for thinking of me. And, Alex and I go way back. So thanks for thinking of me when you saw that. I mean, I think it was immediate. My phone just lit up out of nowhere, like, Brooke, can you talk about this? I'm like, I got you. Like, I can talk about this.
I got you.
That's pretty much how it went.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, does anybody have any, Brooke and Seth, because you're kind of new into this, sometimes we do shout outs at the end. Now that's something that we added. So if anybody has, I know, Brooke, you've already given us like tons of stuff that I'm going to put links in the description for, but Alex, Seth, do you guys have anything you want to shed light on?
I'm going to shout out again Brooke Adventures Instagram handle. Go check that out. I'm also going to shout out Seth for being back on our show and coming back and showing some love. We've missed you. So those are my shout outs today.
All right. Well, I want to shout out you guys for being patient and inviting me back to be on the show finally after like 3 months.
Just happy to have you here.
After me being like, I'm down. Oh, I can't do it. I'm down. I can't do it. Thanks for your patience. Shout out.
I'm just shout out that we don't have to draw pictures of you anymore. That's great.
Yep.
You're saving trees, Seth.
If I'm not in a future episode, you'll just be like, if you want to know what he looks like, we have a link.
That's true.
You don't have to draw pictures anymore.
I guess my shout out, if you're in a place to do so, I would just say continue to support your local restaurants and businesses. If you can do DoorDash, things like that, order some food, keep those places afloat while you're while they're having some struggling times right now. So that is my shout out. And thank you guys for watching, commenting, sharing. We love you guys, and have a good one. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.